Nicole Ayers. Let me do the roll call again. Roll call tonight. We have with us Greg Burnett, Jim Frayer, Nicole Ayers, Brian Meek, and myself, Barbara Smith. First item on the agenda is public participation. Do we have anyone who is here with us tonight who would like to speak? Okay, you can raise your hand if you would like to speak.
Joanne, you're muted.
We do. We have two people, David Westmoreland and Douglas Peoples. I will bring them in.
Okay, only if they're raising their hand to speak.
Okay. Nope, no hands
Okay.
raised.
All right, very good. They're here to watch. Okay, so seeing none, we will close public participation and move on to the next item, which is to approve the minutes of our previous meeting. So we have, hold on one second here. We have the regular meeting of September 6th, 2023. Do I have a motion, please? Mr. Burnett moves the item. Are there any changes, corrections, deletions? All right, seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, Ms. Ayers abstains, and that carries by a vote of 4 to 1 abstention. Moving on to the next item, which is old business. Before we do that, I just want to make a quick announcement about our next meeting, which our next regular meeting is scheduled for November 1st. That night, Norwalk Public Schools and the Board of Education have a big kickoff called the Right to Read, with a big event at the Wall Street Theater. And it's something that many people want to support, including council members. And so we will be, there will be official notifications, but we will be changing the meeting to Monday, October 30th. That is not Halloween. Halloween's the next night. So we were very mindful of that, but we will be changing the meeting. So I just wanted to just publicly state that, and those notices will be taken care of at the correct time. So moving on to old business. Item A, review request for technical correction of previously approved for security enhancements at various schools, and refer the following to Common Council for approval. Authorize the technical correction of Common Council action on August 8th, 2023. Item 7D3, to include the missing costs for Ponus, Rowton, Rowayton, and West Rock schools for an amount of $148,897.25. in addition to the approved amount of $196,581 for a revised total of $345,478.25. The revised action shall be as follows. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Integrated System Services, LLC, for the enhancement to school security access control improvements at Fox Run, Marvin, Narramac, Nathan Hale, NECC, Ponus, Rowton, Rowayton, West Rock schools for a total not to exceed $345,478.25. Account number noted. Will someone move that item, please? Okay, Mr. Frayer moves it. Alan, you want to just give us the details?
Yeah, just let me ask a question. There's somebody with the phone number 1917. Who's that?
That's Joe DeLauro. Hey, Alan.
Hi, Joe. Oh, Joe is here. Joe can explain this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a fairly easy explanation. All the quotes were included, and the pricing was listed. It was just a matter of leaving the 4 bottom schools out of the Excel tabulation. So those costs were not included in the original action.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on that? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed. Okay, Mr. Meek is opposed. That passes 4 to 1. Okay, moving on to new business. Thanks, Joe. First item is Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum Improvement Project Update. So Alan, I'll turn it over to you just to give us introduce it, and then we have Patsy Brescia here.
Thank you. As most of you know, there's no Lockwood Matthews Mansion is under construction. The museum is closed right now. There's a there's a state grant, a city capital budget funding total about, I think it's about 14 point something million dollars. The state has put in like, I think it's $8.8 million or something like that. And the city has $5 million plus into the project. So combined, it's about over $14 million. I, on behalf of the city, it's kind of the financial fiduciary to oversee the project. But at the same time, is that recently, I would say around 6 months ago, we went out to bid, and the bids are very challenging. It's a very complex project about infrastructure improvement, mechanical and fire suppression system. And to go through a National Historic Register building, it's very, very challenging. But in any event, they've been moving along on the project. There are many challenges, but they're working on those. I thought that this is a good opportunity for Lockwood Matthews Mansion to come in to just provide the committee an update to see where they are. The project, I believe, is going to take about 1.5 years, and it's supposed to be finished by December of 2024. So with that, I guess Patsy and Robert, and I think Doug Hempstead may be here also. So
Yeah.
please
He
take it away.
was supposed to be. I don't see Doug, but Doug is now chairman of the board, and I'm vice chairman, but I'm in charge of the project. And Robert Cavello, our architectural owner's rep, is with me, and we do have some pictures because they speak a lot louder than words, because as Alan said, it's an amazingly challenging project, very, very complicated. And we do have current funding of $14,750,800 from the state, as Alan mentioned, and the balance of $6,750 from the city of Norwalk. And those fundings are grants to the museum. And so we are overseeing this project with a lot of help from Alan and other people in the city, and our incredibly talented architectural team of David Scott Parker and Robert Cavello of Westview Group. This project is strictly mechanical. There are no surface improvements, restoration, historical restoration included in this project. And so we originally estimated that the project would be around 17 million. And in order to move forward with the project, we have taken out some of the finishing work that will be required ultimately in order to stay within our budget. And that's the goal that we have right now. So you will be hearing from us in the future on next steps. So I'd like to call on Robert and have him walk through a few of the pictures to show you what's going on. As you know, we had to totally move out everything that was in the building, all of our artifacts, all of our light fixtures of historic value, all of our files, our office, and a lot of materials that really are building fragments from the mansion that are stored, have been stored historically in the mansion, in addition to other pieces of buildings from the site, from the park site. I'm not sure exactly which buildings they're from, but I think some from the laundry, and we have sinks from the laundry and stuff. And I just mentioned that because that's a cost item for us. And we have offsite professional art handlers for our collections and storage in Long Island City. But we also have rented a trailer on site in the south lot of the park, where we have a lot of the city's fragments of the building stored, and they will have to be moved back in. Hopefully there'll be room within the building, or we have to figure out what we're going to do with those. But those fragments under preservation and the state requirements, we have to report to them on a regular basis that we are taking care of those items. So, Robert, if you could, Robert has photographs. Can you share the screen so he can present the photographs? Whoever is orchestrating here.
He is already, it looks like.
Okay, Robert? He's muted. You're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay,
Do you see
okay.
do you see the
Yeah.
screen that I have up with
Yes.
the key points on the project? Okay, thank you and good evening. As Patsy was just describing, the early part of this process of this project was the extensive move out of the collection at the mansion. Patsy's been working on this project for over 10 years, and as Alan alluded to, we went through an extensive bid process last fall. We did not receive the full complements of bids and had to rebid the project back out in January, which also held off our ability to start the moving process. Once we reached that point in time, Patsy and her team started to move forward on the moving process and the collection. And this photo here, so just gives you an indication of the extensive crating these art handlers had to do, handling each one of the pieces, documenting each one of them, and bring into storage. This whole process took over 3 months to complete. But we got us ready for when the contractor, Consigli, was able to start. We signed the guarantee maximum price contract with Consigli on 4/18/23. So that was the true beginning of the construction process. And the GMP value, it was $11,191 and for the work. That includes a contractor's contingency of about $345,000 that they get to work with. As we mentioned, we didn't always have a full complement of bids, so we do have a lot of allowance items in the GMP right now. We will be going through additional budgeting process this fall for a few portions of the projects that we were not able to buy out because we did not get enough bidders or any bidders in some cases on the project, which was it's been a challenge. Excuse me, a challenge.
All the bidding has been through the city's staff
Correct.
purchasing. Yeah.
Correct. So we followed all the state regulations and it was managed through the city process. Here you can just see some of the art handlers handling the historic chandeliers, the process of creating and moving them out. Also, Patsy has moved their staff and storage over to a site which we had to fit out, which is we included in our budget the cost for the fit out of a rental space on Strawberry Hill Avenue. So in addition to the Long Island City location, we also have a great deal of storage on Strawberry Hill, and that's where the museum staff is currently working at it while we're doing the work. So early along in the project, we started our temporary protection. This is just a shot down in the lower level, beginning our temporary protection of what was the former bowling alley in the mansion. Interesting thing about the temporary protection, it's ongoing. It has not stopped. It is a continual piece of work that we have an allowance for in our budget that we're monitoring on time and material. So we're providing all the protection that we feel is necessary, but managing the process, and so that we can stay within our budget.
And you see in this slide, there is a lot of ductwork. That's all been removed because that was the current system, but that's all gone away.
All of that is now gone. So I'm showing these photos in chronological order on how the project sort of has progressed, so everyone can see, will understand. We also, this is one of our challenges of our project during the early spring period. We were doing our due diligence of identifying the soils that needed to be removed from the site. In doing so, we came across some materials that were considered classified and had to be handled to special dump sites. It could not be used. It's very typical of urban sites, very typical of soil conditions. It just, once you touch it, you kind of own it, and then you have to manage it. So we were initially, and this work was all for the installation of the new fire service, which is coming into the facility, a new sprinkler system, and all the new underground mechanical refrigerant lines that will be coming from a standalone remote pad of equipment. So we've monitored all those areas, took those samples. We had to come up with a design and a plan to minimize the amount of soils to be removed. And we were very fortunate working with the Parks Department and working with Alan to come up with a plan that reduced the potential cost of a $300,000 expenditure. And we have it currently budgeted now about $110,000. So that took quite a bit of effort and a lot of cooperation and people working together to make that happen. That work will be starting, continue. We had to stop at one point. We'll now recommence, I should say, next week sometime.
Yeah. And the source for that water actually comes from Stepping Stone's location. We had to cut across their circular driveway, so it's a
have
long run.
I
Okay,
have that coming up.
okay, I'm sorry.
No problem. Again, if you're familiar with the mansion, if you've been down in the basement, you saw the bowling alley. The bowling alley, and also the basement, is filled with probably about 4,000 square feet of bluestone. We need to remove all the bluestone there in order to install our new mechanical systems on the site. And this is a photograph that's just showing you the amount of detail of each stone was by area, was marked, labeled, identified, adjacencies, as you can see here. And then they will be hand removed and palletized and stored to be put back in the same place once we complete the job. Again, this sort of shows you to the entire intensity of work that we have to do and perform to get the underground, these mechanical systems underground will help us make these spaces more usable for future programs for the mansion. That's a very important thing to know, because these spaces in the basement, we are now, by taking out the existing ductwork that you saw in the earlier photos, allows us to have much more headroom and brings back the original look of the mansion in the basement. So it's a major step and a big challenge still in how we are actually running all this underground. This work is at sometime at the end of June. Again, as we go up, we can see that the temporary protection is continuing out through the facility. Floors first, then we worked on stairs and handrails, and then walls and balconies. And again, we would install this work as we were getting more and more involved with our exploratory probing and only doing protection where needed, as needed. But the protection does continue on a daily basis throughout. As you can imagine, our building has a great deal of lead paint that was used back at that time. So whenever we have to remove materials containing lead, we have to put it all in containment. Workers are suited up, they remove the work, and then get clear air clearances in the spaces. So I bring that to your mind because once we get up into the more decorative spaces, the work will also require this type of protection when we have to chase or channel some of the walls in the structure to install the mechanical piping systems and then repatch those walls back in.
This room, this area is sort of key because this is one of the alternates that we'll be working on later. This is the entrance to the museum for visitors, the gift shop and the back entrance. And when we have a tour, we take visitors around to the front door, but this is where everybody comes in on a regular basis. It's the old kitchen.
Yes, the original kitchen. This is the area of material that we have stockpiled of where our mechanical systems will be running. That gives you an idea of the amount of protection that we have in place. These soils will be retested to see if they in fact are considered classified, and as we reuse the materials as we move along. As Patsy mentioned before, this is the start of the work of the fire service. Where we're connecting is literally at the front door of the Stepping Stones Museum, and working closely with the museum staff and the parks people, we bought out in the project to have all of this work performed at night. So there were three evenings of work that this to make the immediate the connection to the existing fire service line. And every night we patched up and cleaned up the site, so there was absolutely no disruption to the mansions, rather the Stepping Stones staff or patrons. So that was a successful collaboration with the park stakeholders. This will start to give you an idea of all the preparation work that we've been doing in the museum to install the sprinkler systems. This is the beginning of laying out pipe runs, trying to determine how to run through the structures, directional, and not only because we have to sprinkle the building, we have to run it through the floor systems of the second floor and penetrate down into the plaster and the decorative spaces on the first floor. So we laid out everything basically in tape and did pilot holes to make sure that we were putting it in positions and locations which would be the least detrimental to any finishes on the first floor area. This literally took weeks and weeks and weeks, and back and forth with the architects and the engineers on how we can do this. And then as we move along in time, you'll see how we have to do this in phases because of the structure could not be, the floor structure could not be removed all at one time. It had to be removed in 4 or 5 quadrants. And this is the start of the removal of those stones that we talked about. Like I say, they were all hand removed, palletized, labeled, marked, and stored on site. All of the underground mechanicals will be trenched into a concrete trench box that will be excavated underneath the slab here. All the piping will be put in. A vapor barrier will be replaced, and the stones will go back. So when we get upstairs, you can start to see the amount of work it takes to remove the 2 layers of wood flooring. This is a view of Mrs. Lockwood's bedroom. And if you can see my cursor here, those are old existing gas pipes that used to feed gas lantern wall sconces, and the chandeliers down below were all run throughout the building. So you can uncover, you can see those. Some of this area that you see protected here is where the original building intrusion alarm system, which went to each window, ran these very delicate wires through the wood planking. So we are here showing that those are being protected and will be put back. Everything will be put back into place. So these troughs that we have cut out into the floor, this is where our sprinkler piping and our new electrical work will run.
There's currently no electricity on this floor and the upper floors, none.
And Patsy, 10 years ago, is it now that or is it more than that, that the new power service for this project was first put, was.
That we started in 208, yeah,
So,
bringing the electricity in from the juice in from West Avenue.
right, so all of the new power that now runs the ADA elevator that was installed 10 years ago and the power required for this project is not part of this budget. It was from a previous budget and installed, waiting for this day, for this work to begin. So all that wood and floors that came up, all had to be, like we did with the stonework, all had to be cataloged and labeled and stored. So this just gives you a small sample of the amount of wood that has been removed, 2 layers. The floors in a lot of the bedrooms and rooms of the second floor all had broadloom carpet. So we're not actually putting back that broadloom carpet. That carpet's been gone for a long time, but in future restorations and renovation projects, I think the intent is to bring back the broadloom. But all of these boards will go back in the exact places where they were removed. You can imagine the time it takes to do that and handle that work. We did run into asbestos. Asbestos was not in the building when it was constructed. There was no asbestos at that time, but the mechanical systems that were added in the 20th century had asbestos in it. The last item being boilers that were installed back in the 70s, early 70s. We actually were able to go take the metal plate off of the equipment and reach out to the manufacturer, and their records indicated that their asbestos did have their boilers did have asbestos within the insulating components of the boiler plates. So we had this, in addition to the classified soil that we have to remove. We have an extensive amount of asbestos that we are contending with at this time. And all of these are all hits against our contingency. This will just give you a little idea, once we have the floors open, the workers, and we continually are moving protection, adding more wall protection in rooms that we're working as we go. It's a daily operation, removing it, closing it up at night, making sure that there's a safe walking conditions in the building. Some of the first new sprinkler piping finally started going in. Up until this point, up until late September, and we started in April, we had not put one new element into this building until the end of September. All the planning and efforts and routing and removals of materials have been our challenges to date. So we're just starting now to see new piping work, and this is up in the attic. It's going to be exposed in the attic since it's not an area that's going to be open to the public. It is taking up a lot more room than Patsy would like, of course, of their storage needs and requirements. But you can see the size of the amount of piping that is just in a small portion of the attic. And a little bit of electrical work is also happening at the same time.
Yeah, there's no current electricity up there.
That's correct. So this gives you an indication of, we finally have putting in some sprinkler pipe on the second floor. And you can see here some old gas piping. Here's a brick wall down below, which has an arch on it. These are large timber beams that are 4 inches by 14 inches deep. We carefully route the pipe, turn the pipe through, and find a place in the plaster in the ceiling below that can that make aesthetic sense, and B, meets the requirements of the NFPA codes to get the proper amount.
And the preservation and SHPO also are involved.
And this is just the beginning of the new electrical wiring, bringing the building up into the 21st century. Also, as part of the project, which is also extremely important, there's a whole new technology package so that the museum will have a better Wi-Fi system, a much more power to to run exhibits even. So there's a huge amount of, and a lighting package, which is not the historical lighting, it's just general lighting to help enhance the interior of the structure, but also provide the minimum foot candles we need to meet code for egress and emergency lighting. So that gives you just a little bit of where we've been, where we're headed. I think I'll turn it back over to Patsy to talk a little bit about some of the things that we are looking to advance in the future. And one of our newest challenges is dealing with some of the moisture control that we're running into down in the basement area. So with that being said, let's see if
Sure.
anyone has questions, I'll turn this back over to Patsy.
Okay, so what you see are what we call the alternates that we took out of the original plan so that we could move forward with the guts for everything. So at this point, these are not funded, and we have to work on that. And we are looking at potential federal grants and other state grants. We do have one state grant for 150 in addition to this to redo the front doors. But a lot of the importance of the basement is that this area is planned to be more of a program area where we can have a educational center underneath the bowling alley, underneath the billiards room for the future. And we put in a few years ago a second egress in order to be ADA compliant. And then the archives that were stored on the second and on the third floor are planned to come down into this area. This is papers, and then all of the costumes, which are authentic family dresses of the Lockwood and Matthews family. They're very precious and valuable. And then ultimately our dream someday is to actually get the bowling alley restored and have that be accessible for special events in the future. So the basement is key to our future programming and staffing opportunities. So this is a little detailed, but it is so complicated that we just thought this would be helpful for you to all see. And also someone mentioned that David Westmoreland is on this in this meeting, and David, along with the Historical Commission, has been with us through all of these years and been a big player in making this all happen. So if anybody has any questions or comments.
Robert, could you just unshare your screen, please, so we can see everyone's face? Thanks very much. Does anyone have any, Mr. Meek?
Yeah, thank you. Looks like nice work on the museum. I just want to, since we're talking about the schools later, I just want to recognize Mrs. Brescia, who happens to be on the plaque of the Norwalk High School that exists today as a member of the construction committees. And I just want to thank her for her 5 decades plus of service to making buildings nicer in the city. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. My goodness, I forgot about that.
You-
That was,
I would suggest you can have the plaque if you want it.
but there's a plaque at the old Y that I did a building there too. And now, now I did it in 1980 and now they're gonna knock it down. So, my God.
I don't know where it was before. There used to, when I was a kid, there used to be payphones out there, but they moved the monument out into the little foyer as you walk into Norwalk High, and
Yeah.
that's you.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Well, 2 of my grandkids just recently graduated from there with a wonderful education, which we're very grateful for. On to Princeton and Vassar. So that's
Amazing,
Norwalk School-
amazing young.
Norwalk school
are.
system.
you-
Start to finish, start to finish.
You said it so well, Patsy, and you have 2 amazing grandkids. And Brian, thank you for highlighting that. Patsy, you have just been a gem. I don't know what this city would have done with you, all of your service over the years. So thanks so much. And thanks for the update. It was very thorough. You know, this is a really important project. It's very expensive, but it is well worth every cent we are putting into it. It's really, you know, in terms of our historical buildings, it's, you know, this is it. It's just an incredible.
It's a national, it really is a national treasure, and it's going to continue to need things done to it. You know,
Mhm.
it's just, the more we do, the more credit Norwalk and popularity Norwalk is going to enjoy. Economic, and it's a good economic driver.
Oh, absolutely. And this work in particular is going to allow for so much more, you know, people to visit throughout the entire year.
Right,
The
yes.
programming, like you said, it's really well worth the investment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, in the event, excuse me, in the event any member of Common Council want to do a tour, just contact me, reach out Robin or arrange it. So it's kind of interesting. I went there, I mean, this week, and it's you know, being an architect myself, it's very kind of unique kind of opportunity to see how an old building is put together, you know, and we're opening it up so we can see everything behind the scenes. So, all right, thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you all. Thanks for your time.
Night.
So before we move on to the school construction project update, unless anyone has any objections, I would like to move item G up because we have Vanessa Valadares here with us who, you know, we've kept her late last night and now we're keeping her late again tonight. But I'd like to, you know, go ahead and move her item forward if that's okay with everyone. Okay, and so the committee, you have received an update with an updated figure in your email. So I'm going to go ahead and read the item as it is, and then Vanessa, you can just talk about the reason for the change, and then we'll have to make an amendment. So I'll read it first. Item G is review bids for improvement of the fuel dispensing island at DPW Center and refer the following to the Common Council for action. A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with ETT Environmental Services, Inc. for DPW Center Fuel Island Improvement Project for a total not to exceed $346,600, account number noted. And B, authorize the Office of Building Management to issue change orders on the contract for a total not to exceed $34,600, account number noted. Will someone move the item, please? Okay, so Mr. Freyer moves it, but actually, I think we have to make the amendment first. So let me make the amendment so that then we can discuss that. I would like to make a motion to amend the item to include the updated figures. So I will read it in that regard. So authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with ETT Environmental Services, Inc. for DPW Center Fuel Island Improvement Project for a total not to exceed $423,000. Account number noted. And B, authorize the Office of Building Management to issue change orders on the contract for a total not to exceed $84,600, account number noted. So I did make the motion. So can we vote for the amendment, please? All in favor of the amendment? The item is amended. Okay. Okay, very good. So that passes. And now we can turn it over to Ms. Valadares.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for changing the order of the agenda. I really appreciate it. The reason that we are in front of you today is that we need to replace the fuel pumps at the operations center. As you know, all our fleet ended up getting gas and diesel there. We are having a lot of issues in those pumps for a few years. Since we built that site, there was a little bit of a settlement in that area. And sometimes things ended up not working as properly. We, as you know, through the Public Works Committee, the other day we just approved the replacement of our scale that kind of settle a little bit. So now kind of with that, we also have some work that still needs to get done, and that was the fuel pumps. So we have been requesting the money for that in a couple of years until we were able to get the full amount. And we finally did it, and then we put it out to bid. As part of the project, we were also considering include the fire suppression system, that is sprinklers over there, since we're using like fuel. When the bid came back, unfortunately, we didn't have yet enough money to include the fuel suppression system. And that's why the first resolution that you guys received didn't include that alternate. The good thing is that we found money, and now we're able to really include the fire suppression system into the project. And that's why you guys, and I appreciate, ended up changing the resolution. So now the value that you have in front of you will include all the new islands with the new pumps and also with a fire suppression system on it. I just want to let you guys know that our diesel pump haven't been working very well already for a couple of months. And we have to have a temporary pump that is pumping from our fuel tank that we replaced about a couple of years ago. So we really need to do this project because we want to avoid any issues. And remember, we pay a very good fee for gas and diesel that our fleet use. If I ended up not having those pumps working, we'll have to outsource to a regular gas station where we're going to be paying regular price.
Okay, Mr. Freyer, go ahead.
I had two questions on this. So the original budget, capital budget, was 390,000. And we're originally only going to use 346,000. Why was that so much? Why was the original capital budget so much higher? And the second thing is, if you've gone over these things and you now feel more comfortable with the 423,000, why did we increase the contingency from 10% to 20%?
That's a very good question. Let me start with the first one. So as I mentioned before, when we start putting the capital request a couple of years ago, we usually we have a conversation and we ask the vendors and the contractors to give us an estimate, and that's how it is the number that we put it on the request. And there were a couple of times that we was under the building management. That's why actually we're in front of the land use committee, that this money had to be fulfilled throughout a couple of cycles. So that's why the final price, when we bid it out, we're a little bit off on when we started requesting the money. In regards to the extra contingency, the reason that we are doing that is that in the bid, we have the pumps in series, which mean that if the first pump will connect to the second, that will connect to the third, that will connect to the fourth. If the first one goes down, all of them will go down as well. So we would like to have a little bit of contingency there, because instead of changing during the bid process, we would like to probably run extra conduits on the ground, since we're going to be excavating, and then make them like running parallel. So if one goes down, the other ones is still going to be able to be used. So that's why we're adding that to the contingency. Instead of issuing as an addendum during the bid process, we thought that may be better that we'll do that.
Well, what I'm not quite sure I understand why you wouldn't put that in the overall cost of the project. Wouldn't you build in that redundancy anyway?
No, usually the way that we do is we make the base bid and the alternate that we want to award as part of the base contract. The contingency is only for extra work that wasn't part of the contract. Did I answer your question, Mr. Freyer?
I think so. Just to follow up on the first one, though, did the original estimate of the 490,000 that you put into the capital budget, did that include the fire suppression system?
No.
So the addition of the fire suppression system is an afterthought, was not originally included.
And a reason for that is that although it's not required, we believe it is an OSHA requirement. It's not an OSHA requirement, but we think we're going to be more in compliance with OSHA. And again, we want to make the space safer. So The idea was if we're gonna really go through this project, because that one has been there since the site was built, and probably I don't think I'm gonna be around when we need to redo those pumps again. We'd rather already do and put the suppression system that I believe it is really a safety. Although it's not mandatory, I would highly recommend that we install with it because that's the opportunity. That's why we were trying to find money throughout and before the meeting to be able to award with the alternate of the suppression system.
I got it. Good. If
Mr.
anything happens, we'll call you back anyway.
Brian, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying to recall, I think we moved the fleet down there around 1990. How old is the canopy itself? I see you've replaced the tanks and the pumps. We should be good on those for a while.
It's a very good question, Mr. Mick. I think you're right about the dates. I would say it's around the 90s. And actually what we did with the canopy, we have a structural engineer to look at it, and it doesn't need to be replaced. And again, we try to be very cautious about the budget that we have. So eventually, if in the future we need just to replace a canopy, we're not going to affect what we already did. But the pillars that we have there, we check, and some of them we may need to do a small repair when we start excavating. We check on that as well. And that's why we have this extra contingency.
Thanks. So I'm thinking, the codes must have changed in 30 years. We should be required to put a steel that's more resilient to like the briny air down there. I mean, are we're going to get something that lasts longer than what we had before, I'm hoping.
The biggest problem, as I mentioned before, is not really the steel one because we're close to the water, because that is kind of an easy to repair because it's really just the finishing around. The biggest issue that we have on that side was really the sediment, and that's why we start losing all the power that comes from the building to the pumps. So that's why we want to add extra conduits. And another thing that I really would like to do in the future is that we're going to probably request in our next capital budget is to include cameras also on those fuel pumps. So I would like to leave the infrastructure with the conduits since we're going to excavate now. So in the future, we can add some cameras there.
Okay. You just opened up a whole can of worms. Why do you need cameras on those fuel pumps? Someone's stealing gas from us?
No, actually, because I believe that we can tie as a plate readers software to our pump instead of having the fob system. I'm just trying to think of the future on how we can improve things and be more efficient.
Okay, I'm not against it. Okay.
No, not about stealing. We have a very good software there that you need to put the gas, the mileage of the car, the fob. Each fob is assigned to.
Yeah, right. Each truck has its own.
Yeah,
card.
but this is already. But there are new technologies out there, right? And one of them can be a plate reader.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Hmm.
I'm not saying it never happened back in the day, but I'm glad you're on top of
Sure.
it.
So so the camera can work for two things. But anyhow, I'm not coming for the camera. I have no money for camera. Camera is not part of it, but we may use some extra conduits for future improvements with camera if needed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate the forward thinking on that. Any other questions? Okay, all right, so I am going to call for a vote on the item as amended. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all right, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you are free to go, Ms. Valadares. Have a good night.
And you.
Okay. All right, so back to school construction update.
Yeah. Sorry. Get a little drink first. I don't have on school construction. I mean, I don't have too much to offer tonight. I think basically the three projects we're working on, everybody knows Cranberry School is open. We are going through some of the punch list line items, including after the rainstorm last week, we have a few leaks that we're addressing, and that's not unusual. So we're taking care of all that stuff and also the miscellaneous stuff, and we have building commissioning that we're going through at the same time. All this work is being done after hours on the day that the school is off. So that stuff continues. And in terms of site-wise, the site, it's the old building is gone, and we are beginning to start working on site development. We are still on schedule to finish the parking lot and the site development, pretty much all of it by I think it's November, before Thanksgiving or so. And I think there's some minor stuff, like I think tree planting and some other minor site landscaping stuff will happen in the springtime, especially planting grass because it's too late in season to seed. So all of that will happen in the spring. So generally speaking, we are on schedule. The project financial is holding pretty well. So I think that's good news. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I think the community and up that part of town is very excited about this project. There'll be a number of small events. We do not have a grand opening yet because the parking lot is kind of small right now. We just fit the staff. But at some point we will look at that. Overall, it's a good thing. And so on to the other two projects, Norwalk High School. We went up to the state today. I didn't go myself, but online. We went through to present our project to the state for their approval for us to go out to bid. We met today, and it's going to continue to tomorrow. So far, it seems the representative of the state is very receptive to the project in terms of the way the package, the construction documents are set up. These are huge documents. I mean, it takes a long time to review. So we're going through all that. Subject to the state approval, and typically they will require us to make some changes, minor changes and stuff like that. Thereafter, we won't go out to bid. So there are still a lot of work ahead of us, and also the bidding environment is very challenging. The reason being we are in Fairfield County, which we all know. It's such a large project that the amount of bidders it's limited. So we need to work on the trade contract in terms of getting quantity and quality of bids for this project. And also the bids is kind of very interesting because the new building construction is 3 years, and the site work, demolition existing building and new ball field is going to happen the 4th and 5th year. So we have figured out figure out a strategy to bid this. Potentially some of these things we're going to bid in 2 years from now. The reason being, if you ask for bid price, it doesn't mean that you could get a low price now. All it does is people are protecting their interest in 3 years from now, and they throw numbers at it, so which may not be competitive at all. It would so there's a lot of pros and cons, a lot of strategy that we look at. So we are going through all those things. And also, I think recently, I don't know if you remember, I submitted and the council approved this whole interdisciplinary review of the drawings. So we spent I think about 2 to 3 weeks more during this process with the architect preparing the drawings, with the construction team, really break it down to every page, every little thing that the drawings are coordinated. When the notes is put in on the drawings, it reflects the specs and also a couple on other pages and stuff. So we spent extra time this is all to avoid the number of questions and conflicts that we have during the bidding process. So all the things evaluated and adjusted, and also it helps to reduce the change order during construction. So these steps are being taken now, so to manage costs and manage time. Beyond that, we are currently scheduled to go out to bid in I believe don't quote me on this, either late November or beginning of December. Bids will come in mid-January, and we are looking to be on site probably end of February next year. When the bids come in, we'll be submitting to land use and the full common council. And what we do is actually approve and guarantee maximum price, which it's an amendment to the existing agreement to begin construction. So it is going to be a very tough next few months in getting this project all together and neat and tidy in terms of getting bids and getting all the numbers together. Regarding South North School, we are generally speaking about like maybe 3 to a month behind. So in a way, it also creates a little bit of problem for us because potentially we are competing with the same, competing for the same trade contractor. So we are looking at this, how we stagger the two projects, but at the same time, we don't want to delay it. So it's still a lot of work to be done. One of the things that we need to do is that I need to come back to land use. I know that we canceled the November 2nd, I think it was, meeting or first meeting. And we're looking at the schedule for the Monday, the October 30th. I think
October
it is.
30th, yeah.
Yeah, I need to talk to you again because we need to send this project to the state for approval a bit. And similar to Norwalk High that we did a couple last meeting, we need to come to land use. So I need to figure out what that time frame is. It's very intricate scheduling. So I may have to request a special meeting on land use, recognize at the same time there's election and changes and stuff. So I need to sit down, really work it out, how best to, I probably will have to request a special meeting on this, but it'll be pretty straightforward. It's just approving those drawings to go up to the state, similar to what we've done last time for Norwalk High School. And there's a whole bunch of things we did earlier this week. Today is what, Wednesday? I guess either Monday or yesterday. We've gone through this whole evaluation on both projects, and there are special meetings that I may need, but it's very kind of interesting because with the election coming and stuff, I need to, Barbara, me and you need to sit down and figure out how much of this you want to do at current council and committee, and whether we want to. I'm not sure our schedule allowed it, but we need to work it out in the detail to see how best to go through approval process, because we don't want. I mean, ideally, you may not want to approve something at this council committee and then the new council to approve it afterward, kind of thing. So we need to kind of figure out what's best for the community, and so that we have a very open and process in terms of approving things, so that we don't force the new council to approve something the previous council approved, guys, committee approved, and things like that. So that's something I'm looking into.
Okay.
So generally speaking, those are three projects. I didn't have my project team to do a whole presentation because we're just so busy running around doing all the other stuff. So generally speaking, that's all it is. If somebody is interested in more detail, welcome to call me up or email me, and we can go through some of this stuff together. I see two hands up. Oh my God.
Mr. Burnett.
Yes, Chairperson Smith. My question is short. Alan, you indicated for Cranberry School that there's no date for a grand opening. Is that different from a ribbon cutting? Because we just received a invitation for a ribbon cutting ceremony on October 12th at 9:30 a.m. Is that different from a grand opening?
I do not know that. I think this is coming from the Board of Education.
That is correct.
They haven't told me, so.
Okay, so there's a ribbon cutting scheduled for.
I think that would probably it.
Okay, Thursday, October 12th. Thank you.
It's not gonna stop you from getting the good photo op. The construction's going on behind the school. Alan, I know you're drinking from a fire hose, but the presses run in architecturals at Norwalk High without the solar carports. I think it's very misleading to anybody looking at the project. When are we gonna get like a full rendering, a full 3D rendering, at least digitally, of what that thing's gonna look like with solar carports in front, back, wherever? Thanks.
Yeah, I'll get something to you. The decision to do the decision, that's a long conversation. We have to get a zoning special permit when we went through this project, and the Planning and Zoning Commission was very supportive, I guess, to do solar carport. It's very challenging for us in terms of a design team, but at their request, we incorporated something on our drawings. And the original concept that they were suggesting was actually an entire parking lot. I compromised and only did like 2 or 3 rows of parking, leave the row of parking that's closest to the front of the building, not having a carport system. Ultimately, the issue will probably be 2 years from now. It's really from the city's perspective. It's a financial performer that dictate how much or how little we do. Solar carport system, it's in my view, and some people may not agree with it, but it costs a lot more to install, construct than rooftop system. Rooftop system, basically, you put a rack system on the roof, it's structurally supported. For carport system, you have to do structural support, which are the cantilever arms and all that stuff, has sort of large foundations because they're cantilever systems. All they add a lot of cost to the overall capital construction of the system, and which have to depreciate for the years. The financial aspect is very challenging, whether we actually save money or not. And also, I think in the last couple of years, the incentive from Eversource has been decreasing a little bit. So that plays a factor in 2 years from now. We'll actually go out and get pricing for it and to see what the feasibility of doing this carport system. So back to your original question, we do have drawings. We do have a 3D perspective that's showing the 2 or 3 rows of solar carport. I will get that to the committees.
Thanks. And then can the suppliers provide any like cost estimate on maintaining these things? I mean, like who's going to wash the bird poop off? Because we barely do it on the buildings that sit there right now. And these things are just going to be bird nests.
I think they were doing it as part of my retirement plan, but I guess not. But this is interesting because the way the power purchase agreement, which is a PPA, works, the city owns the property, releasing the system. So they are providing the capital cost of building this. As part of it, this 20-year agreement, the vendor or the owner of the system, they have every interest to maintain the system at an operating level, because our payment to them is based on the electricity that's generated. So you're making up here 500,000 kilowatt hours per year. We pay them monthly payment based on the actual generation. So the system not generating, they're not getting paid. So there's an interest for them to make sure the system runs properly. And also they have a part of this agreement is that they do full maintenance on the system. So anytime that something is wrong, they will come out and do this, because otherwise they don't get paid. So because it's not generate electricity. So in a way, it's a self-building for a certain level of efficiency and maintenance. The challenge is like 20 years from now, after the system is fully, the agreement ends and the city owns the system, that's when the financial benefit really hit the city, because then we will no longer make payments to the vendor. Everything that I read and hear nowadays, I'm not expert in this, but everything I know about solar system is that panel today can last 25 to 30 years, and some people even say 35. So we have an agreement for 20 years. The 5 to 10 years afterward, that's where the savings are. But again, by the time we get 25 years from now, who knows what the technology is at that point. So there's still, I mean, that's how we look at different things, I think one last thing I want to mention is that there's a difference between solar carport system versus rooftop. Rooftop, the agreements say 20 years, but I do not look at it more than 25. The reason being is that roofing system designed for 25 to 35 years, and leaks becomes more and more as the time goes by. At some point, we're going to put a new roof on. So I can't expect the rooftop system to last more than 25 years, because we got to put the roof, we got to remove the roof. Once we remove the roof, we never put the system back on. We'll do either put a new system or new technology and stuff. So when I talk about value in terms of savings for rooftop, I look at 25 years. And for carport, potentially we can look at it 30 years, because once your carport system is up, there's more, you can stay on longer. But it is a challenge because carport system is, there's some aesthetic concern with it. Being a designer myself, I'm struggling with it, but finding a balance between energy saving, environmental versus aesthetic and stuff. I think everybody can debate what's right or wrong kind of thing, but this is part of the request and requirement of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We are cooperating, we're listening to them and put it in there. But at the same time, the reality of this is that we won't know about 2 years from now whether this is really financially feasible. So I will continue to work on it, but I don't know what the final outcome would be. But I will get you a copy of those drawings that we developed.
Thanks, Alan. And I think the difference between the rooftop, right, is the design incorporates a little bit of a parapet, so it's going to be very difficult to see those panels.
Oh yeah,
from grade level.
You would,
as opposed to the parking lot, it's just going to blind you in the face when the sun shines off it, right?
I think the rooftop system, Norwell High School, you never see it. The setback at least about 10 feet on the edge of the building. At grade level, you never see on top of a 3-story building. It's like
Right, you'd have to
Jefferson.
be up there washing the windows to see anything.
Yeah, if you're a drone on the sky, you see it. But
Yeah,
on the other hand, on the school like Jefferson School, where the grades, we go up the hill, you have a better opportunity to be able to see those solar panels on the roof. So it really just depends on location and elevation of the, of the public. So we are sensitive to those things. I don't think Norwell High School had much of a parapet, but at the same time, once you step back 10 feet, you never see it from the grade level. But carport system basically is almost like a garage, but we're opening in the aisle. So it's not like fully covered like a garage, but at the same time, it is covered. So every we have carport system, we will not have trees because we just, the two kind of like, fundamentally opposite each other. When you're a carport system, you can't have trees to create shadow and you don't get the production of the solar system. So it is a continued conversation for the next 2 years to see how much and how affordable it is to put carport solar in our high school. But there are many challenges because one of the things it's so challenging because putting in those footing, it's when to put it in, how much time we have to put it in, because we're building a whole parking lot, we got to hold off and also running conduit underground, and then we got storm system that go underneath. We have storm water retention in the parking lot. All of this made the carport solar very challenging in terms of design and construction. So there's a lot of time spent on it to figure out strategy to do that. So I don't want to tie up any more time, if you don't mind.
Well, thanks, Alan. That's great. I would look forward to seeing like full renderings of architecturals, and not tonight or next week, but
We do have them. So
Yeah.
before we build them.
We
Yep.
have seen them, Brian, and it may have been in a meeting, before you joined us. I don't know. We definitely did see them. But Alan, I just want to say, I really appreciate your honesty around this and, discussing the challenges of it, particularly around the aesthetics of it, right in front of a brand new, beautiful high school. I mean, we want to do everything we can around sustainability and solar energy, but it is a challenge. And I know I have seen some of those carports that are, very modern and kind of cool looking. But, what is the cost of that versus what we might be able to afford? So, I just appreciate the honesty and the discussion.
yeah, you may see if you go on internet, you may find some carport systems very attractive. But the way the federal tax credit works, you can't spend so much money on aesthetics because they don't
Right,
qualify you. So
right.
there's a dollar amount that you max out. So really, like, if somebody do like 10 cars or something, they're willing to, as a corporation, they want to do a demonstration project. They want to spend more money, and it's not cost effective, but it's really a demonstration project. When we do a carport like what we're doing, it's had to be very basic, the financial aspect of the work. And one last thing is that most of the time we see carport for at least the East Coast. Well, even I was in San Diego a few weeks ago. Carport usually put on the secondary parking lot and not in front of the building. So having it in front of the building is challenging. The other thing that we have to understand is that, when we look at other community, especially suburban community, when a high school of 300,000 square feet can be on 50 acres of property and it's 1-story, 2-story building, you have a lot more square footage on the rooftop than when we have a 3- or 4-story building. Our square footprint of the building is much smaller than a suburban community. So if a community in somewhere in the suburb can generate 60% of electricity on the roof, we only generate 30% because our footprint is smaller. So as much as we try to do this, it's that much harder in an urban community to meet those kind of abstracted goal that somebody can do a net zero building. Well, it's that much more harder for us to do it because just so solar wise, the footprint of the building is much smaller, even the same square footage. We have a 3- or 4-story building. Our footprint is half the size. So if somebody can generate 60% on the roof, we only generate 30%. So trying to compare us to other community, suburban community, it's just not fair. I mean, it's not achievable at some point. But anyway, so I got a little more than I need to.
Mr. Freyer.
It just occurred to me when we were talking about the carport solar systems. Are there going to be any charging stations?
Yes. This is what I'm looking at. There's long discussion about this. Norwalk High School has staff-wise, it's 270 somewhat cars, 275 maybe. Students about another 125 cars or something like that, and then public. We are looking to provide 470 somewhat spaces. We look at, it's kind of very interesting. I mean, if you are a school along Route 1 or 95 or things like that, there's a higher probability of people parking there and charging. For this school, we think that there will be some, but at the same time is that most people that own a electric car right now, generally speaking, I would think that they would probably most likely would be somebody that owns a one-family house with charging at home, so they'd be charging a car before they get to work, kind of thing. There are possibility that people are charging. So we are not providing like charging for like 20 or 30 cars. What we're doing is, I believe we are doing 4 station, and don't quote me on this because we will look at this very carefully. 4 station, which is accommodate 8 cars with ability to go to 8 station for 16 cars. Okay, so again, we look at how many cars we have potential, like kids that live in Norwalk, chances are like if they drive a electric car, they probably charge it at home before they get to whatever kind of thing. So, and also the other thing too is, so we are looking to provide 4 stations for 8 cars with ability to expand to 8 stations, 16 cars, something like that. I forgot what the actual number is, but it's interesting because we want to manage this issue. The reason being, the more station you have, the size of the electrical system in the building, the switching gear, had to be upsized inside the building. Okay, so your switching gear had to be oversized to accommodate this. Now we look at next 10 years for a parking lot like this. How many cars do you think will be charging a day, kind of thing? And so we have to make some assumptions and figure what's realistic and what's reasonable and fair. So it's not like you can just arbitrarily say, oh, we're gonna do it for 40 cars. Well, if nobody uses, we are upsizing the building electrical system to do something that doesn't get used. So we did analysis on this, and we came up with a reasonable number of charging stations. So there are a lot of thought behind it, and there will be, I think, either 4 or 8 of them by the time we open the school.
Because I'm thinking that as we look at the automobile manufacturers are all switching to electric cars. We've got mandates out there that by 2035 we'll have 5 times as many electric cars out there. So the trend is going like this. But I agree with you that the distance that students would travel to get to school is minimal, so that it would behoove them to charge it at home, even though they may have multiple cars. But I would think that one charge could probably take them about 2 weeks commuting back and forth from school. They're all local. They're all going to live within about 5 miles anyway.
Yes, very interesting too. I mean, when you talk about charging, is it cheaper to charge at home or cheaper to charge in a public facility that could potentially be a commercial rate with credit card charges and markup for for service charges and stuff? I mean, I don't know because I don't own an electric car, but at the same time is that all that need to be considered, because if I have an electric car, do I charge it at home where I have the ability to charge it at home, or apartment building? I mean, I think in the future, I think the urban area with an apartment building, chances are they will provide charging station at the facility. So you can charge it at your complex. Or if I was city trying to look at places to put them, I would put charging station more in the urban area so that you can attract more apartment dwellers to, they may not mind going downstairs and walk a block or half a block to charge your car, but at some point you're not going to walk 4 blocks and then walk back home and wait and come back and charge and pick up your car. So there's a certain level of human behavior thing that we need to look at. So again, if I'm trying to locate as a city, locate charging station, I will really focus the urban area so we can get more user from the community. But when you talk about like Cranberry School, when it's AA, AAA residence zone, if someone buy an electric car, chances they charge it at their one family home, and also it's no transient people coming by. So and also, I mean, it's our responsibility at some point. I mean, it's like gas station. Do we put one in Cranberry just for people may need something kind of thing? So it's really so there's a lot of analysis need to be done. There's no right or wrong. It's really a lot of common sense needs to go into it. So again, I want to stop because I can go on forever.
No, but the fact of the matter is that there are going to be charging stations. There will be a little bit of
Expansion
wiggle
capability.
room to expansion, but we're not going to go whole hog. of it.
Right. And my last thought on this is that I even talk about this. For some reason, if that curve that you talk about go really extreme high, we can always bring another utility line, a circuit into the property and create new areas.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to tie to the building because I'm going to increase the electric. I think each station takes about 80 amp or something like that. So when you have two stations, you probably have to go to 200 amp service. So it's not, I mean, you know, for North High School, it's not a big deal, but everything matters, right? So so again, if we provide 8 or 6, I forgot what is 6 or 18, I don't know how it's multiplied out, but at some point we do need more. We just bring a utility line from the street, put a meter on, and set up station that way in the future. So
Fact of the matter is that it's been considered.
thank you.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions around school construction? All right, let's move on to item C, review school HVAC improvement needs in response to the current state HVAC grant application process and provide recommendation to initiate special appropriation process to allocate the city's share 40% of these projects in order to comply with grant application requirements. Will someone move that item, please? Mr. Freyer moves it. Alan, I'm going to turn this over to you. I know it's, a little bit complicated because what we're approving is a process, not committing to funds until we actually have the grants. So if you could just, go into those details, that would be great.
Yeah, this is somewhat complicated, but I'm going to do my best to make it as short as possible. I think for school construction project, I think generally speaking, there's 3 categories. One is those multi-million-dollars, such as North High School, South North School, and Cranberry School, where it's like 50, 60, 70, 80 million, whatever it may be kind of thing. And those are, Board of Ed requests those projects with the cities kind of cooperatively request those projects. And the city, me on behalf of the city and the Common Council, the mayor, are responsible for implementing those projects subject to Common Council approval of funds. So those are planned, multi-year planning and stuff like that. At this point, finance looking at it to see how often can we afford a project that's $50 million. We got to look at our debt service and everything else and our bonding capability and stuff like that. And potentially, I think we're looking at potentially every 3 years, we can do one large project kind of thing. But again, that's not my decision. That's not my evaluation. It's really up to Henry's input kind of thing and decision. So that's the major project. There's a second category of project that's probably potentially between 1.5 or $2 million to like $5-6 million. We're always going to have those. Whether it's one building, you got to do something major, whatever it is. So there's all that group project. There's also the third layer, which is like $200,000, $500,000 to $1.5 million, including parking lot, paving, air conditioning repair, mechanical system repair, replacement, and stuff like that, environmental remediation, all that stuff. Those will continue to come in from the Board of Education. So this project we're talking about is the mid-range one, between, let's say, again, $2 million to $5-6 million kind of thing. And each year, I think there will be at least 1 or 2 that Board of Ed submit. It's not intentionally, but it's just nature of the process kind of how things wear and tear through the years. Typically, when the state does not reimburse us for project that repair and general replacement, so it's very common that when you do a boiler replacement, that's not reimbursable. When you add classroom, that's reimbursable, and today's rate is at 60%, right? Traditionally, it's at 22.3%. Now it's 60%. So when you talk about, let's say, replacing boilers, replacing air conditioning units and stuff like that, and chillers and all that, that's not reimbursable. So the city had to pay 100% of it instead of 40% of it. So there's this group of projects out there that the city has a lot more financial liability on them. So with this recent HVAC grant that was issued last year, what it does allow community to do this project and be reimbursable. So they issued this grant application last year and did not they did not accept a lot of project because the criteria they provided was very hard to meet. So I don't know how, Joanne may know, but I don't know how much they set out last year, but they didn't get that many projects. They rejected a lot of projects. So they reissued it. We knew they were going to reissue it back in May or so. We knew that they were going to reissue it in September. And we didn't know what the deadline would be. So since then, I think starting in May or so, we actually preparing ourselves to submit grant application to the state. So back in May, we actually went out for RFP for a mechanical consultant. We hired through the Common Council, and then we approved a consultant. They did the design. At the same time, they went out and get professional cost estimate. And that's what's in front of us today. What these grant application requires are basically three things. One is that the city need to have a design, need to have professional estimates, and we need to allocate the city's share of the money, which is 40% of those projects. So we have the design. It's not drawings, it's really a description. We have a professional cost estimate, which is all that's attached to my memo. And the next piece is allocating funding for it. It's a large amount of money. We have 6 projects. Brian McMahon High School, Brookside School, Marvin, and Silvermine. Now making we're waiting for air conditioning projects. So when you combine all these, it's about $35 million. So it's not like, not like $1 million here and there kind of thing. It's altogether hard and soft core coming around $36 million. But what's in front of you today is that you don't have to pick which project and all. The strategy here is that we're going to submit all 6 projects. And I'm not sure the city has the right to actually prioritize them. We're going to submit them and see what the state do with them. But at the same time is that, of $36 million, we have to allocate $40 million funding for 40% of the funding for these projects. But it doesn't mean that we're going to spend all that money. All it means that we meet the requirement of the application. And then if the state approve it, then that project, we will put our share of the money into that project. But potentially they typically, based on the number the project they approved previous round, the community got the most money is probably $7 to $8 million. So I'm not sure how this round is going to work. But again, we want to submit these projects and see what happens. But at the same time, I need to go for a special appropriation process and have the city allocate the money, knowing the city's, Henry has mentioned many times about our financial situation, all that stuff. But it is a incentive for us to get 60% of project that will be coming up next 3 to 5 years. Potentially get 60% reimbursement project that we typically won't get any funding for. So it is a positive thing in that sense. And knowing that I'll be asking for special appropriation for a lot of money, which is about $14 million. At the same time, I don't anticipate that we will be spending it. We're only spending a portion of the project that the state approves. So I think when we go for the special appropriation process, BET and the Finance Committee and the Common Council may put condition on it that in the event that we don't get state grant money, that we will cancel those projects. And those projects that not get money will fall back to our normal process or capital budget process to compete with other projects that happen in the city for funding for whatever. So that's what I have in front of you. It's a long conversation, but there's a lot of thoughts behind it and a lot of strategizing how best to put things together, the process. Again, I would be running the same situation regarding approvals because I had to go for special appropriation. And that had to go to the Finance Committee and the Common Council right during the election time. So I need to work out a schedule that works for the council. At the same time, I need to come back to land use also because as part of this approval, our submission grant application, the Common Council also approved the submission of these projects, also designating a school building committee. All of this is typical, but at the same time, it just so happened that it's middle of this transition from the current council to the next one kind of thing. So again, I need to work on it to figure a schedule that works for everybody. Okay.
Okay, questions? Okay, Mr. Freyer.
So that's a great summary, Ellen. So if I understand it right, is there a requirement if we submit this, like a $35 million package of 6 different projects, the state would then approve maybe either all 6 or 4 of them. How does that work?
Yeah, it's not one package. It's really separate, 6 separate application.
Okay,
So they're gonna pick and choose, and that's my concern, because certain projects more important to us. You know,
okay.
if we know
Second-
equipment is failing, we want to do that one, but we don't have the opportunity to prioritize them.
Okay, so then the next step would be, would we have to have approval, or would we have to have approved the capital budget for those 6 projects in order for them to qualify for the state subsidy? So we'd have to put it in our capital budget and then hope that the state approves it.
Right.
And if the state didn't approve it, then it's sitting in our capital budget, which we could always push out, or we could drop, or we could change, or something like that, or switch off things. But but we'd have to put it on a capital budget. And if they weren't, if the state didn't approve it, then we don't get the money for it, or maybe we could push it off till next year and resubmit it. Something.
Yeah,
along
I think that decision, once we submit to the state with 6 projects, we allocate our 40%, we see what they do, and then we come back, and the city and the common council and the BET, I would just typically, I would make a recommendation what I would think that was best interest of the community financially, as well as improvement wise. And the decision is up to the city to see whether you try to cancel the money, or you want to leave it and do a smaller project for that school or whatever. And whether can we afford like 40% of 35 million? It's about $14 million, right? So is this something we want to keep in the books, or we want to just revert it back? Just so that we clear the book, and then people can submit as Board of Ed, and the school can submit those projects, and we'll compete with paving program or whatever kind of thing, like normal capital budget.
Yeah, so my concern would be that you're going to tie up capital dollars on the chance that you may get 40% or may get 60% subsidy on it. So
yeah, I think
it's a bit of a gamble.
Yeah, at the same time, it's deadline is December 31st. So I would think that they will provide approval probably in 3 to 4 months the most. So by spring of next year, April or so, I think we know what we get and stuff, and then we can make the decision as bring those numbers back down, so that it's not like at least on paper we are not carrying such a debt, potential debt.
All right. Okay.
So I'm sorry. I know.
Yeah.
Great.
Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, yes, thank you. It's on the surface, it's a great great set of projects that at some point need to be done. However, I am concerned, timing is everything. I am concerned about the commitment of such a large amount of capital dollars without looking at the overall scope across all departments of our capital dollar needs. As you stated, the CFO has indicated that we're pushing up against that threshold where if we extend too much of our capital dollar resources, it can impact our bond rating. So I'm concerned about such a large potential request of $14 million based upon the projected cushion of about $50 million that we currently have. I would want to see what other departments have major type capital investments coming down the line similar to this one before making a decision. So I will be abstaining from this vote at this time.
Greg, I'm sorry, if you don't mind. This is something that I want to talk to Henry about. The reason being is that I'm looking at future financial commitment of the city for school construction. So remember I talked about there's 3 categories of project. This is the middle category. My position with Board of Education, not position, I'm sorry, that sounds like a strong word here. My thinking on this is that if the city gonna support these projects and we get funding for this from the state, I'm looking at it that, you know, if typically the city gonna allocate $40 million of capital budget every year. I think we should lower that limit a little bit because we spend this money already. So we are, instead of tapping into existing, we are looking at future expenditure. So if the city is looking for spending 40 million next year and intending to spend some money for Board of Education, this actually took, I think my strategy, we basically, we took some of those advanced money out of their ability. And then the commitment from the Board of Education is that, you know, if we get out of these 6 projects, we're going to do 3 of these projects. Then for next 2 years, 3 years, maybe they won't submit the mid-range projects. So we are paying for that for the future years, so that we're reducing the annual capital budget allocation to Board of Education. So this is because they have requested and we have funded those projects in advance, so that we don't have to accept these unless it's a real emergency or something else kind of thing. So it's a commitment on both parties to say, look, if we're going to get approved, we got 6 projects, we got 3 of them for the next 2 years, 3 years. We don't want to hear about these mid-range projects and let's just do these projects because we funded them. And so instead of funding the capital budget $40 million, we reduce it by whatever, $5 million, whatever, that next 3 years. And because we took that money for Board of Ed already. So that may be a strategy. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not a financial, Henry need to look at that.
Go ahead, Jim.
We're not voting on any allocation or
No.
of funds here. We're just, maybe I'm wrong, but this is just your information that you're giving us on a process that you're going to start on. And I would expect that this process would be during the budget period and you'd bring it to Henry's, and Henry would make the decision on whether we want to gamble on that or not. So I don't think I hear what you're bringing up, Greg, but I don't think that this is an issue that we'd be tying up or pushing our credit limits, because Henry is going to be on top of that and making that decision. He's well aware of what our outside limit is on what we can borrow. So
just to correct you, this will not go through would go through a special capital appropriation. So this will not go through the normal capital budget process. We're trying to move this forward within the next 30 days to get the application in. So that this will not come up during the capital budget discussions.
but I thought that what Alan said earlier on was that we would have to have this in our capital budget.
No, this would be a special appropriation. So I think when it comes to land use committee, it's so that this committee, as the body that oversees school construction implementation, is fully aware of it. So, and it's no approval by this committee required. We will information purposes. So I want to explain to member of the Common Council in this committee. And tomorrow or day after, I will write a letter similar that I have here in the package to Henry. And the mayor, copy the mayor, requesting these funds. And Henry's I'm going to sit down with Henry, and me and him is going to look at it and figure out whether the city cannot afford them. He would make a recommendation and to the mayor, and on behalf of the mayor, assuming whatever they decide, we forward it to the board of estimate, and then to the planning and zoning commission, and to the finance committee, Common Council, and thereafter full Common Council. So this. I talked to Henry twice already. Yeah, he's struggling with it. At the same time, it's he understands what the objectives are, and so he had to kind of look at it and say, "Geez, you know what? I know we're not competing as part of the regular capital budget process, but at the same time is that if we do fund some of this, we may have to lower the ceiling." Because we took some money out of future years already, right? Though the seeing overall project, and also board that we're not going to present these mid-sized project for you next 2 years, 3 years, right, because we captured it. But again, those are discussions me and Henry need to have, and financially he need to be comfortable with it. I mean, every penny is a penny. So I'm taking a lead from him. There's nothing to push. I think it's a good financial. I wouldn't consider risk or opportunity that we have to take care of some of these projects, especially that, if we don't do this, these projects come in as capital budget requests to the council for the next 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Right, so you are going to face with
Without
these projects,
reimbursement, right, without reimbursement from the state.
right, and
Right.
don't get any reimbursement.
Right,
So
right.
Bryman Man High School, like the chiller fell last year or something,
Yeah.
it cost $70,000 to a temporary one, but it's really a Band-Aid thing. We only also one chiller, so this project would give us 2 chillers as backup to it kind of thing. And especially we're talking about Bryman Man, it's constructed in 2003 to 2004. By next year, 20 years old. I think I said the Common Council the other day is that today's technology, when in old days you buy a boiler, oil-fired boiler, Smith boiler, they say it last 25 years. We have them for 30 years, 35 years. The
Right.
technology and equipment we have, lucky we get to 20 years. 25 is really on the edge. So these projects are coming in regardless of we do this or not. So again, some of these we have like one other thing interesting too is that boiler projects sometimes more important to it. It's not so much boiler, heating projects, because sometimes the equipment nowadays is heating and cooling, right? Like Marvin School, the rooftop units are both heating and cooling. You can't lose air conditioning, potentially lose a couple of days of schools, either during the beginning of summer or end of summer kind of thing. But heat, you cannot fail because it can affect you since October to March, right?
Right.
Heating is more important than air conditioning. I'm not putting air conditioning down, but in terms of keeping system alive and working, the heating system is more important to me because we have to open school. Air conditioning, we lose a couple of days like this year. We lost a couple of days in the beginning of this couple of days, we don't have snow days, we didn't use any last year, right? So we used a couple of heat days. I'm not making fun of it, but it's the priority of how we spend money. It's that fixing mechanical system that's for heating and cooling is more important just to do air conditioning. So again, so it's like Marvin, the system is combined, heating and cooling and rooftop. So they are at the end. So again, if we don't get any funding, these projects will be on the capital budget request for the next 5 years, and we still have to address them because we cannot live without heat. Air conditioning can get by a little bit more.
But I think the major point here, and to what Greg was saying, is his concern is that this is a process that's going to go through the CFO, who's well aware of what our limits of how much we can borrow. So I hope, I think I have a lot of faith in Henry's judgment that he's not going to commit us to something where we're going to push over or push us into a situation with our credit rating at risk. So I'm not worried about that. I just wanted to make sure whether it's a special appropriation or, as I guess I misunderstood what you said, it was going to be in a capital budget. So I'm comfortable with the process and the fact that you are working hand in glove with Henry and with the BET.
Yeah, I feel similarly. If these are projects that absolutely are going to come our way at some point in time, and we have the opportunity to, have them, funded through this grant process, I think we've got, we're approving a process here, and Henry will stop it if it needs to be stopped. So I think that's what we have to, a little bit of a leap of faith, but I do trust our CFO to do that. So
yeah, I mean, as much as we talk about the whole package, $35 million and 40% of which is $14 million, I don't anticipate we're going to get half of the, 3 projects. They're not going to approve 6 projects for City of Norwalk. I don't know I'm not sure what I'm hoping for because that's a lot of work. And they had their requirement that we finish in 2 years. So it's a lot of work. So regardless, so so once we get the, when we do submit 6 projects, after we see it, if we get $20 million, that's $20 million, 40% would be, $8 million. So, I mean, that becomes the reality. The 14 is just a max upset number, but at the same time, it's the reality. It's depend if they've done $10 million, that's $4 million for us. So I just want to put things in perspective that I don't anticipate they will fund all 6 projects for the City of Norwalk.
Pretty soon we'll be talking about real money. Okay.
all
Thank you.
right, any
Alan.
more questions? Concerns? Okay, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, Mr. Meek, I didn't see your vote.
Yeah, I'm a negative. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay, so passes by 3. Did I see 3 or 2? No, yeah, 3. Okay, so 3 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstention. So that passes. Okay, let's move on to item D. Yeah. Review request to adjust property lines between Norwalk High School and Narragansett School and refer the following to the Common Council for action. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute the boundary line agreement and all other documents necessary to effectuate the adjustment of the property lines between Norwalk High School and Narragansett School. Will someone move that item? Ms. Ayers moves it. Alan?
Yeah, this somewhat straightforward in my mind, so pardon me if I speak out of line. So for the last almost 2 years now, we've been working on a design of the school, and it's very interesting that for some reason, the property line between Narragansett and Norwalk High School, current property line is really weird. It goes right through the football field. So for the year when we designed the project, we have every intention to adjust that all along. But we have taken into consideration the existing building of Narragansett School in terms of setback requirement, the zoning regulation, and the square foot. At the same time, we want to maximize the reimbursement eligible area for reimbursement of the state. So there's a lot of thought behind where the line is drawn. It's pretty straightforward. It captures all the Norwalk High School facility. Exactly where the line go for the little softball field next to Narragansett. It's one area that we had a lot of discussion on, and we don't want to capture the whole field because for different reasons. So at some point, again, between zoning and reimbursement, and we thought that by redoing this, it's the best financial and operating setup that we have, because this is both property, the city property and school. So the law requirement feel that, you know, for record purposes or land record purposes, we need to effectuate that process and require the mayor to do an agreement to itself, kind of thing. So it's a little weird, but at the same time, it's a law department feel that we need to, staff cannot ask for like changing property line on a property, so you need the mayor to do it. Therefore, it's coming to the council for approval. There's no hidden agenda here. It's pretty straightforward. We're not trying to capture more land from Narragansett or more or less. It really it's a very technical kind of evaluation and maximize our reimbursement so that we don't. If the line drawn differently and more to Narragansett School, that means that any improvement in that area is not subject to reimbursement. So all that has been looked at very carefully, and here we are. Thank you.
Mr. Meek?
Thanks. So two questions. Try to keep it short. So there's no encroachment on the Narragansett softball field there. The construction won't touch that at all.
It will. We are what we're trying to take it back. We are rotate. You know, if you know the Narragansett little softball field, it's really not a real softball field, right? It's like the right field line. I think it's like 120 feet.
Yeah, it's for my daughter played there. It's for the like 5th and 6th graders. It's not.
Yeah, and also Norwalk High's Trinity Varsity plays there, but it's not real soft. It's really just anyway. So what we did on this project is that we rotated the field so we can get 180 feet out of it. So we put the bats on the other side, but by drawing the line the way we drawn, that work is eligible under the Norwalk High School reimbursement. And also because Norwalk High School softball JV plays on it, we are able to claim that that's an improvement for boy. But then I can't draw a line to include the entire softball field because that line would be too close to the building and we wouldn't meet zoning regulation. So the majority of costs to put the backstop in, to put the infield in, is in the Norwalk High School project. The seeding and stuff for the flipping of the field, we have to pay for. So, but we're trying to capture the bigger portion of the cost under the school construction so that we minimize our expenses.
Thank you. I know it's our land. It moves one way or the other, but the other thing that's like, I just don't understand is, recall recall, we have $3 million in developed plans down to like the color and shapes of wall tiles to put a school in South Norwalk that would have been open today. And then we were told we were short a half acre of land, so we couldn't get it done. So now we're down in Hatch and Bailey. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But now you're moving this property line. It makes Narragansett far less than the site at Ely. Are we in violation of like land requirements for Narragansett School because we're shifting this line? It's just very puzzling to me how, you know, the rules just seem to change whichever way they need to be changed. And here's another one. So I don't know if that has any bearing on any of this. I know it's our land. We're going to use it for school kids here and there. It just does, none of it makes sense to me. The more I learn, the less I know. Thanks.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes, thank you. Alan, I think I might have misheard what you said earlier. The requirement, what is the state requiring us to reline this land? Where is this coming from? Why are we doing it now?
This is required because the land, the property line between Norwalk High School and Narragansett School, I think that was the existing property line. It's very arbitrary. I think at some point in the past, the city acquired the property for Norwalk High School when it built it back in the 70s. And it didn't matter at the time that which portion of where the property line is, we build what we build, and that's what it is. But when we do this project now for Norwalk High School, it is important that the property line is properly depleted in our property, because we as we do this project, we have to deal with addressing building setbacks and also state reimbursement. That's why we're making these changes. So it's not a state requiring it. It's actually the project. We are the city actually, well, not me requiring, but it's something we have to do to make everything align properly so that we can identify area for Norwalk High School in order to get reimbursement.
So thank you for that. My follow-up question, I guess, is since Narragansett will be losing essentially some acreage, is there any way, you know, if I'm remembering Narragansett, on the back side where the new cafeteria is and the little playground, and then it's that patch of trees, is there any way we can get acreage on the other side, on the Strawberry Hill side, or we can't touch that either?
It's kind of interesting. I mean, the current property line for Narragansett go middle of the football field. So really, it's not really, I don't think we should, as a city, I don't think we should look at that property line so technical. We're doing this because of technical reason, but the utilization of the site is very different. You know, Norwalk High School for different event, Narragansett School can go onto Norwalk High School to do whatever they do, kind of thing. It's really up to the two schools to work it out. If they have graduation, they want to use the field, whatever, they're welcome to do. They work it out. So it's just because there's a property line, we are not saying that, you know, elementary school kid, you can't cross that line. It's us and them kind of thing. I think.
And that's not where I was going. That's not where I was going.
Okay.
I think I spoke to you previously when we were doing the walkthrough of that site at Narragansett, the kitchen and the library. And I know, I'm sure Narragansett is on somebody's list at some time to get look at, but even the formation of the layout of that school is weird. And so my thought is not if someone's having a graduation or us and them. That's not my thought. My thought is when you have children out to play, when you have kids for recess. If you have kids that are in Narragansett having recess and doing activities during school hours, state regulations, middle school and high school kids they just can't be in the same space. That's not safe. That's not best practices. So I was just trying to think of in a more logistical way, not in a literal way. Okay. If there was some, I'm saying swing space, but that's not even the right terminology. Some other places that the young people could go during the school hours. Not that people were forbidden to use any side of the line.
Understood. So when we developed the plan for Norwalk High School, Norwalk High School does not need an outdoor basketball court. And I talked to Ken from Parks Department. He wasn't looking for a full basketball court either, but having a half court was somewhat important in the neighborhood kind of thing. So what we did also, because Narrowbank always talk about, not always, but for elementary school, having a paved area for kids to run around right after a rainstorm, it's important because you get muddy and stuff. There's simply a paved surface to run around. So we included a near where the existing basketball court is, we kept a half court basketball there so that for Narrowbank school. But when we met with Narrowbank principal and parents, there was a desire to create a separate area in the back near the playground or asphalt area so that the kids can run around again, like last weekend storm kind of thing afterward, they can run around outside. So we actually paved this in early August this year. We created an area in the back of asphalt area, back of Narrowbank school, at the request of Narrowbank school a year ago. That when I met with them, there was discussion of providing some paved area in the back. So we did it. And again, I think early August, first or second week of August, we put in a paved area. So we met their requests for some asphalt paving surface for the kids to run around a little bit. If you're talking about creating the wooded area, I don't think we ever actually talk about it in detail. I don't even remember the conversation, but cutting wooded area is a different conversation. Also, the grades over there is really sloped down. So except the flat area, but that's close to the street intersection of King Street and Strawberry Hill. That's a little far away from the school itself. So we did put the paved area near the playground for Narrowbank school again.
Other questions? Okay, then let's call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, Mr. Meek is opposed. It passes 4-1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to item E. Review bids for roof replacement at Roosevelt Center and refer the following to Common Council for action. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Silktown Roofing, Inc. for the partial roof replacement at Roosevelt Center for a total not to exceed $370,700, account number noted. And B, authorize building management to execute change orders on contract for a total not to exceed $37,070, account numbers noted. Please, will someone move the item? Mr. Burnett moves the item, and go ahead. Alan.
Okay, Rosa Center on Allen Road. Right now, it's the home of the senior center, the Board of Education Early Childhood Center, Nova Early Childhood Center, as well as recreation programming for some of the class one wing. That's the wing that this recreation parks and senior center uses. There's two multi-purpose room, and also old day they have the weight room in there, and also there's the gym area where they have the senior uses for classes and pickleballs and stuff like that in there. That roof has been leaking for, I noticed that probably about 3 years ago, and we have plastic tar in there catching water and stuff like that. We have been requesting money, I think, last 2-3 years, and we got money. The council approved money recently, and we are moving forward with this project. Silktown Roofing is one of the few larger roofing company in the state remaining, and we have done business with them before. It's a good price, and we want to proceed with it. The building has multiple roofs, like 6 or 7 roofs. And we typically don't do all the roof at the same time. It's when we have, a portion of the roof is holding, we don't go and fix it just because we want to line everything up. So, I mean, we could do this roof, and 3 years from now, we have another section of roof, but that's how it is. Again, we don't go do all the roof at the same time. We just financially, it's just not, cost effective, because certain portion may have more life in it. So we want to, so again, overall, it's big enough that there's, that it's $370,000 is a lot of money, and so it's not like there's a value in consolidating this roof together. So anyway, so that's what is in front of us. Is so requesting the committee and the council approval to proceed. We're looking for do this project right now.
Sorry, Mr. Meek.
Thanks. Not against this at all. Just a question about the overall property. Maybe I missed this somewhere. It was in my understanding that there was going to be a playground developed for smaller children, kind of like on the eastern side of the property, closer to 14 Acres Pond. I never saw that happen. I don't know what happened with it.
There's a, I don't know which is the east side, but we did, there was $150,000 allocated to the Parks Department to put a playground in. And the new playground is the Board of Education, I forgot what it was, but it's actually on the outfield of the Little League field, on the right field. Is it the right field? Yeah.
Yeah, I think
By
it
the
doesn't
basketball court and
conform to
stuff like
like
that.
the smaller children. It's more like the middle, not like 3 and 4 year olds, more like 6, 7 year olds when 3 and 4 year olds go to the school. If it's out of your scope and purview, that's fine. I was just curious about it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the only other place we have, like the other side of the building is for senior center. So only place that would be the courtyard in the back. It's kind of interesting. We talk, I don't know you realize, I used to be the playground designer for the city kind of thing. So we deal with this issue regularly. When we talk about 3 and 4 years old, these kids nowadays, don't get me wrong here. Kids nowadays, you purposely design playground equipment for that age. They grow out of it so fast because they're not very exciting. It's just a little platform. You walk a couple of steps, you're there. In a year, they're done with it. So the more challenging equipment. I'm not saying the big kid playground equipment. I think the playground designer had to really look at, unless you are really like a nursery school and there's all the kids at that age. Usually, when a general park. We try to build a playground that's more suitable for all ages, and even the 3 or 4 year olds kind of thing, there's certain portion of playground we provide to them that is easy to get on. But the same point is that they grow up, that they don't play on that section much longer than 6 months, kind of thing. So it's something that it's so when we design playgrounds, we look at the age group. It's not like separate for public parks. See, schools are a little different, right? Schools are a little bit more. When they're kindergarten kind of thing. I know that this is for early childhood over there, but at the same time they have a gym inside the facility. They have equipments in it. The old Roosevelt Center, our school has a gym in there. That's in the middle portion of the parking lot. So they have an interior space that they can do active recreation inside as well. So finding the balance and stuff when we do it, using park money to do a playground outside. So that playground out there, maybe I believe the little section that it's more younger kid friendly. But at the same time, we didn't build a whole playground just for them.
Hey, look, don't get me wrong. It's a total luxury. I heard it was coming and never came. I'd rather see a more comprehensive plan for the entire map. If you ever go up there, on Allen Road, the first parking lot, if you're coming like from City Hall, the fence is completely like destroyed. And, there's weeds and trees growing through it, like on the east side of the building, right at Allen Road. And I don't discount, this roof needs to be replaced. I can attest to that firsthand. Just a question about overall plans, more or less, for the entire facility. It's one of our oldest in the city. I think maybe only Rowayton Elementary is older.
Yeah, it's Tracy probably 1938.
Yeah, right there.
1930. Actually, the fence you talk about came up probably about 4 months ago. The decision whether we want to rip it off and just throw it away, or we got to put fencing back in, and then whether it fall under recreation park or building management. And the question I have is the thinking was that we're going to rip it off and just dispose of it because what do you need it for? My thinking was that there's a pond down, there's wetland. So are we concerned about kids running down the hill and getting into the water area and stuff? So this again, I'm talking too much here again, but it's there's a thought behind it, but we're not sure what we want to do and where the money coming from to replace all that fencing. So we stopped.
Hey, I say get rid of it. They can run down the back side of the lot too. I mean,
Yeah. Right.
Unless you want to keep like skunks and snapper turtles out of the parking lot. That's all that fence was doing.
Yes, so that we did have a conversation. Let me get back in the office tomorrow and talk to Neil in my office and also Ken from Parks Department So we'll take action on it. And then, you know, what, again, my concern was just like, you know, there's a fence there now, where we really do need a fence for safety purposes, kind of, and then, you know, like you said, like people can get in there, you put a fence, the kids can climb over it, but again, you know, anyway, we'll look at it and
Okay.
we'll do something one way or the other, but buying a fence along the property, once you start, then we go around all the property, and then at some point, it's like, we don't have that budget to do all that fencing around, what's it serve and all that stuff, so that was a little bit of, and it wasn't again, last bottom line is that wasn't on my highest priority, so we talked about it, and I didn't make a decision on this, so I'll go back and look at it and we figure something out.
Fixing the roof's huge. Thanks, Alan.
All right.
Got to be done. Okay, any more comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. All righty, that passes unanimously. And finally, item F, review the needs for security monitoring services contract for the Belden Main Library and refer the following to the Common Council for action. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a 3-year agreement with 1 2-year renewal option with Security Solution Incorporated to provide security monitoring services for the Belden Main Library for a total not to exceed $999 per year. Annual increase is no more than 3% per year. Funds are available from operating account number noted. Will someone move the item, please? Ms. Ayers moves the item, and
Yeah.
Ellen, go ahead.
Okay, very quickly, I mean, typically this item does not come to Common Council. It's because today's world, the security alarm company refuses to sign city contracts, and it's kind of getting more and more standard. So we can't even go to another company anymore because people they are kind of protecting their whatever kind of thing. So it's very small to the point that we don't come to council. We usually do a purchase order and it's done. But they require a contract, otherwise they won't provide the service. So we are doing a contract, and then because we are doing a contract, the mayor have to execute it. I can't execute contract on behalf of the city. So here we are. It's an operating item. We have many purchase order that establish operating relationships with different service group kind of thing. But because of security, they want a contract, and we can't avoid it. So that's just basically it. And the law department will work out the terms. If something they don't like, they'll work it out somehow. But it's a security company buy and sell each other all the time. So it becomes more and more of a global thing in terms of the industry establish these standard, and everybody uses them, and so we can't avoid it. So I don't know what other building we will have this issue coming up, but we deal one at a time. So as we go through improvement on alarm system, different company comes in and stuff, and we go out bidding and figure out what it is. And at the end of the day, this is what we do. Okay.
They're a reputable company. I can attest to that.
Oh yeah. Oh.
But yeah, we use them for our home. So
it's
they're
crazy.
very good price.
How the industry kind of like people we deal with a sales rep. Next thing we talk to them, they rep another company.
Oh.
Yeah, it's I don't want to say the word publicly, but yeah, it's a very interesting industry.
All right, any questions? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Alrighty, that passes unanimously. And that is it for us for tonight. Thank you, everyone. It was a long meeting, very productive. Motion to adjourn. Ms. Ayers, thank you very much. All in favor? Okay, have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you, Joanne.